Some cards are valuable because they're rare, others because they're pristine, and some because they'll haunt you. The 1971-72 Topps number 180 John Brisker card isn't scarce. It's not foil, it's not a graded 10, but it holds something else, something heavier. It's not just a card, it's a question mark. A photograph of Fury dressed in polyester. A man frozen mid-motion, holding an ABA ball like a live grenade, moments before he'd blow up a scoreboard or a teammate, depending on the day. The card doesn't just show a player, it traps a storm. Brisker stares out from a solid green background, coiled and ready. The top of the card shouts Pittsburgh in wavy yellow bubble letters, outlined in black. A playful font for a man who didn't play. Below the image, two colors tell the story. John Brisker in bold black and red. Condors guard. Not forward, not center, guard. Like someone's trying to warn you. This isn't a collectible, it's a warning label. Because John Brisker wasn't just a scorer. He was one of the most feared men in pro basketball. He had the ABA's sweetest jumper and its meanest fists. He dropped 50 points in a game, got suspended for fighting teammates, and then vanished without a trace. And this card, it's what he left behind. This is Cardboard Credentials. Today we're peeling back the layers of a mystery wrapped in cardboard. The story of a man too dangerous for his era and too interesting to ever be forgotten. Detroit in the 1940s and 50s was an unforgiving place. The factories roared and the winters bit hard. The streets were known for their own gravity. That's where John Brisker came from. Born June 15, 1947, raised in a city that valued power, silence, and survival. Detroit made muscle cars and men who hit like one. Brisker wasn't pampered. He didn't have trainers or highlight reels, but he had two things, a jump shot and a mean streak. He played high school basketball in Michigan and went on to the University of Toledo. Not exactly Duke, but not invisible either. And once he stepped onto the court, the game bent around him. At 6'5", Brisker wasn't just strong, he was explosive. He had a featherlight touch from 20 feet and a brawler's mindset when he drove the lane. In his final season at Toledo, he averaged 22.9 points and 7.1 rebounds per game. He was an efficient machine. But scouts weren't just watching his game, they were watching his temper. Stories followed him like shadows. Fights in practice, technicals, suspensions. One coach called him brilliant and terrifying. That wasn't hyperbole. The NBA hesitated, but the ABA was a different animal. The American Basketball Association was basketball's rock concert. It launched in 1967 to rival the NBA. It had a red, white, and blue basketball, 3-point lines, and team names that sounded like failed jazz clubs. Enter the Pittsburgh Condors, a team barely held together by duct tape, debt, and desperation. In 1969, they signed John Brisker. He wasn't a draft steal. He wasn't a publicity stunt. He was a weapon. And in Pittsburgh, they let him go full blast. In his rookie year, Brisker averaged 21.1 points per game. Year 2, that's when he became a menace. Brisker dropped 29.3 points per game in the 1970-71 season, second only to Zelmo Beatty in the entire ABA. He didn't just score, he punished. He could hit a jumper from 25 feet, then elbow you into the third row on the next possession. Brisker was built like a linebacker with the flick of the wrist release. He moved like a cobra and struck just as fast. But scoring wasn't all he led the league in. He wrapped up 366 personal fouls, also leading the ABA, because Brisker played basketball the same way some men play war. And in 1971, Topps captured that fury in cardboard. It's not rare, it's not flashy, but it's unforgettable. Brisker stands mid-dribble, ball tucked tight in his left hand, right arm cocked like he's about to attack. He's wearing the white Condors jersey with blue and red stripes, the number barely visible on his hip. His eyes are focused, but not on you. He's looking through you. The background, bright green. Loud, flat, like a stage curtain being pulled behind a one-man play. The top of the card reads Pittsburgh in stylized yellow bubble letters. The bottom, John Brisker, Condors guard. Black for the name, red for the role, like a headline and a warning sign. No foil, no stats, just posture and presence. This isn't a highlight reel. It's a mugshot for greatness. And when you hold it, you feel it. It's not just that he's gone. It's that even in cardboard, he seems restless. John Brisker didn't want to be famous. He wanted to win and hurt you doing it. He once said, "I don't foul out, I knock out." His teammates were scared of him. Opponents didn't talk trash, and even refs gave him space. He once squared up during the national anthem. He allegedly threatened a teammate with scissors, and yet he led his team in scoring, rebounding, and leadership. His kind of leadership. The Pittsburgh Condors didn't last. They folded after the 1971-72 season. But Brisker's legend, it was just beginning. In 1972, the Seattle Supersonics gave him a shot. They saw the scoring, they saw the edge. They thought maybe the structure of the NBA would mellow him out. It didn't. Brisker played 3 partial seasons in Seattle. He averaged 11.9 points per game in his first year, but his minutes were inconsistent, his role undefined. By his 3rd season, he was barely seeing the floor. The NBA didn't want wild cards. It wanted polish, predictability, and marketability. Brisker was none of those things. He clashed with coaches, showed up late, or not at all. He was suspended more than once. In the spring of 1975, the Seattle Supersonics released John Brisker. No press conference, no farewell, just a quiet roster move to make space. He was 28 years old. In most cases, that's a beginning. An age where careers peak, when stars sign second contracts, when veterans become leaders. But for John Brisker, it was the end of the line. There were no other offers, no tryouts, not from the NBA and not from what remained of the ABA, not even from overseas leagues desperate for American scoring talent. Too many coaches had seen the tape. Too many GMs heard the whispers. The short fuse, the missed flights, the locker room explosions, and even worse, the things they couldn't verify, the ones that lived in rumor. So when Seattle let him go, the rest of basketball let him disappear. And disappear he did. Not just from box scores, from everything. For a while, no one knew where he was. Reporters who had covered him couldn't find him. Teammates hadn't spoken to him, and even his family kept details vague. What little we do know comes from fragments. Brisker remained in Seattle for a time. He reportedly dabbled in business, importing African artwork, opening a used car lot, possibly working with contacts he made in international trade. Some say he was trying to reinvent himself. Others say he was just trying to stay afloat. There were murmurs about him running into debt, unpaid taxes, failed ventures. Even in silence, trouble clung to him. A friend from his ABA days later recalled a chilling quote. Sometime around 1977, Brisker told him, "They don't want me alive, and they'll be happy when I vanish. So maybe I will." At the time, it sounded like bitterness, but it turned out to be something more. Because in 1978, John Brisker said he was going on a trip to Uganda, and that's the last time anyone saw him. Let's pause here. Uganda in the 1970s was not a place you want to do business. It was a dictatorship under the brutal regime of Idi Amin, a military strongman known for violence, paranoia, and political purges. The West called him the Butcher of Uganda. Up to 500,000 people were killed during his rule. Foreigners were routinely detained, tortured, and executed. Even journalists avoided it. Missionaries left. But Brisker, he booked a flight. Some said he claimed to be working on a cultural exchange. Others said he was trying to do business with Ugandan officials, possibly even Amin himself. One former teammate said Brisker believed he could become a sports ambassador for Africa. Maybe that was the dream. Or maybe it was a lie to cover up something darker. Gun running, political involvement, mercenary work. No one knows for sure. Brisker flew to Africa sometime in early 1978. He left no itinerary, no clear explanation, and after landing, presumably in Kampala, he vanished. No immigration records, no photographs, no receipts, and no communication. For years, his family didn't even file a missing persons report. Why? Because they were sure he wasn't actually missing. He had always been private, always moved in silence, always kept one step away from everyone else. But the silence grew louder. Teammates began to talk. Journalists sniffed around the edges of the story. Theories multiplied. Was he dead, or had he simply walked away? By 1980, Brisker was officially a ghost. But then the sightings began. A man who looked like him was reportedly seen in Kenya, another in Ghana. One story said he'd been spotted in Caracas, Venezuela. Another placed him in Oakland, living under a new name. A former Supersonics teammate claimed to have received a collect call from him in 1981. A deep voice on the other end said, "I'm alive," and then hung up. Was it Brisker, or was it a prank? Nobody knew. Nobody could prove anything. The NBA, when asked, had no comment. The Seattle Supersonics had issued no statement. The ABA, it no longer existed. John Brisker had become exactly what the world feared he'd always be: unreachable. In 1985, the IRS declared John Brisker legally dead. The date of death? May 1978. No body, no evidence. Just a line item in a government database. That was it. His estate was settled. His bank accounts were closed. His record frozen in place. From that moment forward, Brisker became less man and more myth. A story traded in whispers. A cautionary tale. A trivia question with no answer. The world let go of Brisker. His card did not. By the late 1980s, John Brisker had become basketball's strangest ghost story. There were no documentaries, no investigations, no tributes. Just a persistent sense that something had gone sideways, and a rumor mill that refused to stop spinning. Some sports writers called it a tragedy. Others called it karma. A few called it justice. But to anyone who had actually seen him play, none of that felt right. You didn't forget John Brisker. Not if you guarded him, not if you coached him, not if you shared a locker room with him. The fists, the fouls, the 50-point nights, the tension that followed him like a second jersey. And so, the story began to shift, from a cautionary tale to folklore. Not just a player lost to time, but a force. Something elemental. A warning passed down from older players to younger ones. And central to that myth was the card. Topps didn't know that they were capturing a ghost when they printed card number 180 in 1971. To them, it was just another face in the 233-card set. A Pittsburgh Condor, poised mid-dribble in his white ABA uniform, staring down the camera under a neon green background. But as years passed, that card changed. Not in ink or condition, but in meaning. The green got more radioactive. The stare got more intense. The player more unknowable. Because for younger collectors, those who didn't see Brisker live, the card became the only proof he ever existed. There's no highlight reel, no licensed jersey, no Hall of Fame plaque. There's just Topps 180. It doesn't scream, it smolders. And in a binder of bubble-lettered optimism, Brisker's card feels like a warning sign no one took seriously until it was too late. As Brisker's legacy grew, so did the reassessments. People began asking the same questions. Was he really that violent? Was he a product of an unstable league? Did the media make him a villain because he didn't play nice? There were no easy answers, because Brisker left no explanations. He left confrontations. He didn't chase endorsement deals. He didn't sit down for puff piece interviews. He wasn't political, performative, or polished. He was raw, he was present, and then he was gone. In a sports culture that demands happy endings, Brisker refused to offer one. The refusal, decades later, is what made him iconic. In the 2000s, Brisker's rookie cards started to pop up in strange places. Not in high-end auctions, not in PSA slabs, but in forums, in long Twitter threads, in Reddit posts titled, "Who Remembers This Guy?" The stories always followed. Someone's dad saw him drop 42 and a half. Someone's uncle played against him in a pickup game and walked off with a black eye. Someone swore he had seen him pumping gas in the 90s and just nodded when asked, "Are you Brisker?" And the card, Topps 180, became the receipt for all of it. No fancy foil, no parallel print runs, just cardstock and mystery, and that was enough. There's something uncanny about Brisker's photo on the card. It's not the color, not the pose, not even the history behind it. It's the fact that it feels alive. Most old cards show athletes smiling, posed, corporate, polish. Brisker, he looks ready to fight. Eyes locked, elbows firm, like the photo was taken a half second before everything went off the rails. It's not an action shot, it's a threat assessment. And for some collectors, it's the most honest card in the entire 1971-72 set. It doesn't glamorize the game. It doesn't sell hope. It sells truth. And sometimes the truth is mean. John Brisker would have thrived in the social media age, or maybe even been destroyed by it. His scoring would have gone viral. His fights would have trended. His mystery, monetized. But in the 1970s, there was no redemption arc. No player empowerment. No mental health discussion. No branding advisors. You either fit the mold or you broke it. Brisker didn't just break it. He lit it on fire. He wasn't made for slogans. He wasn't made for marketability. He was made for impact. And even though he's been gone for decades, he still leaves one. Because somewhere in a shoebox or a binder or a dusty card show dollar bin, there's that green flash, that stare, and it says more than words ever could. John Brisker was last seen in 1978, declared dead in 1985. But his 1971-72 Topps number 180 card, it's still here. It survived folding leagues, silent front offices, missing person reports, and the internet's bottomless appetite for forgotten legends. It exists not because of what happened on the court, but because of what didn't happen afterward. There was no retirement speech, no book deal, no charity golf tournament, no resolution. And in that silence, the card speaks. Not just for the player he was, but for the idea that stories don't need endings to matter. There's something sacred about a trading card when it becomes the only artifact left behind. There are no photos of John Brisker after 1975. No videos from Uganda. No interviews. No public records. Just that one image. That one pose. ABA ball in hand. Green backdrop. Condor's jersey. Tension in the forearms. Eyes locked on a future no one can see. It's not just paper. It's proof. Proof he existed. Proof he mattered. Proof he was dangerous, complicated, and real. Because when a player disappears and the world forgets, the cardboard doesn't. It stays filed in boxes, in memories, in the collective drawer of basketball history. Brisker resonates today for the same reason he scared coaches in 1971. He was uncontrollable. In a game now measured by efficiency, social media presence, and player-friendly branding, Brisker still cuts through the noise with pure intensity. He was human volatility, a walking contradiction, a graceful scorer with fists like anvils, a lone wolf in a team sport, a man who could hit an 18-foot jumper like poetry and break a nose 2 minutes later. He was everything the league didn't want at the time, and everything it now wishes it had and understood better. Players like Brisker don't come back around because we build systems to keep them out. Most basketball cards gain value from resolution, career achievements, Hall of Fame inductions, legacy retrospectives. Brisker's card is the opposite. Its value lives in the absence of resolution. No one knows what happened, and somehow that makes the card heavier. It's the unsolved murder mystery of sports memorabilia, a piece of evidence, a conversation starter, a dare. It dares you to find out more, to explain the unexplainable, to turn stats into story, and a story into silence. And in that silence is meaning. If you're holding the 1971-72 Topps number 180 card, you're not just holding cardboard. You're holding a man who once led an entire league in scoring, who struck fear into opponents, teammates, and referees, who left a league without ever saying goodbye, who might have died thousands of miles from home, or might still be alive. The truth is, we don't know. And maybe we're not supposed to. Because every now and then, sports gives us a story that refuses to be completed. Not because it's messy, but because it matters more that way. And that's what this card is. A story you can't finish, only revisit, and only remember. We often look at sports cards as snapshots of greatness, tiny trophies for fans, icons sealed in gloss. But some cards are eulogies. Some are mysteries. Some are survivors. And John Brisker's rookie card, it's all three. It's not about the stats on the back. It's not about the team on the front. It's about the feeling you get when you look at it and realize the man is gone, but the presence remains. Because in the end, a legacy doesn't always need a conclusion. Sometimes it just needs to be felt. And in card number 180, it is. Thank you for listening to Cardboard Credentials. Until next time, keep your cards close, and always remember, every card has a story.